Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar this afternoon, Bridging the Gap, Harnessing Substitute Teaching to Prepare Tomorrow's Educators. So today, in response to urgent needs from their district partners and a growing focus on grow your own pathways, EPPs across the country are exploring how to integrate substitute teaching into their programs. This innovative approach offers students valuable real-world experience while addressing critical staffing shortages in K-12 education. Today, we'll hear from amazing experts on how we plan to tackle this. They'll share some insights, and we'll get some wonderful information out of this webinar today. So we're very excited to introduce a couple of folks today, but nonetheless, before we kick it off, we'd love for you all to ensure that you receive all of our recorded webinars, as well as our Pathways Alliance resource digest. So please sign up for the Pathways news. Again, it's our newsletter, and we hope that you don't miss out. We'd love to cross paths with you. So my name is Sabrina Baptiste. I am the Pathways Alliance project manager, and I'll be introducing some of our amazing folks today and kind of moderating our webinar. And I will also love to introduce Amanda Von Moos, who is with Substantial Classrooms. And again, she will begin kicking us off, and we will be sharing this platform with Lake Sumter State College. And again, our webinar today will be Bridging the Gap, Harnessing Substitute Teaching to Prepare Tomorrow's Educators. Amanda?
Thank you so much, Sabrina. We are excited to be here. This is a topic that we're seeing kind of come up all across the country in the post-pandemic recovery period. So we think it's really exciting and an area for creativity, for collaboration between school districts and the preparation program, the teacher prep programs that work with them. So excited to really have some guests from a program that has been grappling with these questions in a really thoughtful way, and how to leverage the need for substitute teaching, the need for students to be working, and the structure that you need in teacher prep. So a little bit about that. So I'm going to be kicking off with just a little bit of context setting, and then I'm going to hand it off to my colleagues. Just a tiny bit about Substantial. We are a national nonprofit. We're on a mission to unlock the potential of substitute teaching. And we do work nationally, and we really scan the national landscape to look for bright spots and really interesting things people are doing around substitute teaching. And that's one of the things we're bringing to you today. So here's our plan for our time together. First, we're going to just do a little context setting. Why think about this issue of why think about substitute teaching as practicum? A few best practices that we see in this space, and then we're going to have a panel with some people who are actually doing the work. They're going to share some design best practices that are emerging from their work, and then we're going to wrap up with time for questions and connections to what this might look like in your context. So again, this is the intersection we're talking about, the intersection between strengthening substitute teaching, what's happening in the field, and cultivating future teachers. There's a bunch of different ideas percolating in this space. Today, we're going to dive pretty deep on this one, which is practicum. So one thing that we're starting to see is across the country, teacher prep programs are in a moment of really rethinking how they work, how they structure, what their relationship is with their local districts. And they're doing that in a time when nationally we're seeing a real increase in focus on grow your own, or GYO programs, and an urgent need for substitute teachers that sort of has not gone away since the pandemic. What we're seeing is increasingly EPP programs really working to become effective workforce partners for districts. Looking, how do we sort of deepen our partnership beyond just we do teacher prep and then we hand off new teachers to you. So our panelists will talk much more in depth about practicum and the opportunity of practicum, but I just want to orient people who don't work in teacher prep to what is practicum. So practicum is an early field experience that allows an education student or a future teacher to apply what they're learning in the real world. Classic examples of this are things like after-school tutoring programs. These are usually kind of volunteer roles that early education students would be doing to, again, get some real world experience being in schools. Traditionally, they've been unpaid, and this is distinct from student teaching. It's sort of usually earlier in a credential program. This is just a nice illustration, just again to say, this is the idea that it is a paid field work or paid practicum for somebody who's in an education program. So just wanted to highlight as we come into this, a couple best practices that we see as we have talked with university folks and other people who are thinking about substitute teaching as a learning experience. The first one is that you do really need to provide role-specific training. Being a sub is a pretty specific role. If you want to advance this slide. Being a sub is a specific role. It is, of course, very similar to being a teacher, but it does have some unique characteristics that we need to prepare students for, and also to set expectations around so that we're setting it up as a learning experience. So you got to equip them for that role. The next is it works best when students are, the education students are embedded in a school community. This is true for all substitute teaching. Substitute teaching always works best when a substitute is more connected to that school community. But that's especially important if you're trying to make this a learning experience. You want it to feel supported. You want them to feel part of the team. And you want to a little bit protect them from some of the parts of substitute teaching that are not well designed in our sector right now. The last thing that we see is this really works best as a learning opportunity if it is really clearly connected to what they're learning in their EPP program. So it really, you best leverage this if it is intentionally like you are applying your learning and reflecting on your experience as a sub, not that it's a part-time job that is totally separate from what you're doing in your EPP program. So I am very excited to now introduce our panelists, because I think as you hear about what they're doing in Lake Sumter, I think what you're going to hear is these best practices really in action. So 3 amazing panelists today, moderated by my colleague, Erin who is our Director of Teaching and Learning at Substantial Classrooms. She's going to be talking with Dr. Stephanie Luke, who's the Executive Director of the Elementary Education Program at Lake Sumter State College, and with Marnie Kay, who is a director in that program. So I'm going to now hand off to them and look forward to coming back for questions later.
Try that again. Thank you, Amanda. I just wanted to quickly give you just a little background on the Lake Sumter State College program. They are located in Central Florida, and they serve Lake and Sumter counties. And in January of 2024, so just this year, they were approved by the Florida Department of Education to begin an elementary education Bachelor's of Science program. Based on recent research that Amanda was alluding to in the beginning, that supports the benefits of clinical experiences for training pre-service teachers, the directors combined the experiences of working with pre-service teachers in Lake Sumter State College to design this program that embeds that practical, relevant experience with K-6 students from day one. So that's where the substitute teaching becomes this integral part of that clinical practice in their program. I'm really excited to hear from them about what they did to make this work. So without further ado, let's get started. Our first pillar of, you can go to the next slide. Oops. Of course, my dog is now to bark out the window. Okay. The first one is stakeholders. Let's just start from the beginning. What were the first steps to engaging districts for this program?
So first, I'll say thank you for the opportunity to highlight some of the things that Lake Sumter is doing and how we're doing it. I know that Marnie and I are both really excited to be here and be a partner with Pathways Alliance and Innovate EDU, and of course, Substantial Schools. And so In regards to like the first steps to engaging our stakeholders, and it was really having the doors open. So I know we kind of brainstormed, how did we get to where we are? And it did seem like post-COVID, we were able to leverage a little bit more opportunity. There was a little bit more opportunity to have some out-of-the-box thinking. We found that school districts and university partners alike were a little bit more approachable in regards to how we might use our futures or our pre-service teachers, our future teachers in the classroom. Marnie and I have both been in this business for a little while, and we've come from an era where we were not allowed to have our interns substitute even when they were in their final internship opportunity, which is different from practicum, as Amanda was alluding to earlier, but they weren't even allowed to at that stage in the game. And now, as we've seen this evolution to the need for great substitute teachers and the need for teachers who are prepared, they've found that, yes, our interns are adequately prepared. And maybe even prior to that, if we can get them into a program that embeds these clinical experiences that are linked to their coursework, which we'll get to as well, that there might be an opportunity for us to harness some of those as substitutes. And so that was, I think that was the first opportunity. And then the second is it's a new program. So brand new, right in the moment that we do need teachers greatly and substitute teachers greatly. And so again, being able to try some of the things out that have been tossed around and considered in the past. And so Marty and I both did a lot of work in our former roles as instructors with clinical experiences embedded in our courses. And we obviously noted such an extreme difference between students who had opportunities in schools that were authentic, that were with students, rather than being in a classroom and reading about it. And even, we're going to do a lesson plan and teach it to our peers. How different is that than when you're teaching it to an actual group of small humans, right? And so when we started talking about this program and how we wanted to provide those opportunities early on, I was able to engage actually to the districts that we serve. And you alluded to this as workforce. So interestingly, at Lake Sumter State College, we have the conversation is, does the elementary education bachelor's program fit in academic affairs or does it fit in workforce? Because we are developing workforce. Every district that I went to partner with when starting this program, the superintendent sat at the table with me. Like that's where we are, I think, for the level of urgency. So it wasn't difficult to get key stakeholders at the table. Like everybody wants a solution to the teacher shortage and to the substitute shortage. And so, we engage with what do you think this might look like? Are you open to having our students who are in their first semester of the bachelor's program? So the students that we're talking about have an AA degree. That's a requirement to get into a teacher preparation program in the state of Florida. So they're in their first year of teacher preparation program. So the junior level, from that point of, are we open to this? Yes, let's try it. We assumed an advisory committee. And so the Lake Sumter State College partnered with both Lake and Sumter County, because those are the local counties that we serve in our geographic region that we're trying to develop a workforce for. And that advisory committee consists of both superintendents of Lake and Sumter County. There's a district personnel attending from Lake and Sumter County. And then we also engaged our high school teaching academies because, as Amanda alluded before, we have this grow your own approach as well. So in both Lake and Sumter counties, we have grow your own high school teaching academies that are already thriving, actually doing really well. We're seeing major growth in those areas. So those teachers are at the table, as well as some of the principals that serve in those schools. And then we have some teachers as well, our high school teaching academy teachers. And then we have one of our teachers of the year just to sit and talk about the best practices in designing a teacher preparation program. So when we sat with that key group of stakeholders, that's when the magic started to happen, for lack of a better word. We decided which courses we might put alongside that, which I know is coming up in the conversation as well. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. We talked about how we would manage substitute teachers and internships at the same time. So that's a key stakeholder, I will tell you, is, and one we hadn't considered before, is HR. So this becomes, before we had a partnership with professional learning departments in schools and then teacher preparation programs. But now we have this HR component because they are employees of Lake Sumter. Or of Lake County schools and Sumter County schools, as well as students at Lake Sumter State College. So the assistant superintendent of human resources has just been
fantastic. So helpful. And I think that's so important, right? Is really building relationships strongly, and that there's a mutually beneficial component for everyone, for Lake Sumter State to really prepare really strong teachers, for our students who get practical experience, and for the districts to have to fill a really critical need. And so when we're all working together nicely, it works great. And I think that everyone can see the benefit. And so it's been a really exciting experience so far.
Yeah, it has. So they work out how to pay them. Like, how do we pay them? That's all on the HR side of the house. We asked them which days they needed substitutes the most, and the common response was Monday and Friday. So we'll talk about how we scheduled to meet the needs of the district, the mutual needs of the district. And they were thrilled to be considered for having substitutes on Mondays and Fridays. The structure of those types of things, and I think maybe just the open lines of communication. And then I'm kind of getting into some of the next questions I think we have planned. So I'll stop for a second.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate how you outlined both the urgency for, this new cutting edge program that you really wanted to follow best practice and get them into classrooms, as well as the urgent need for districts to have coverage and to continue to have a robust grow your own program, both for substitute teachers and for teachers. So, and in tapping into all of those needs, then you came together and had this beautiful committee that helped together to collaboratively create the solution. I think that's really key. Okay, so next slide. How did you go about designing placement for subs, and how did you engage with the principals in this process?
Okay. So our principals, we felt like, especially to kick the program off, like how might we make this very focused? Because everything's substantial covered in regards to, we all need to be on board. We know the experience that some substitutes have right now. We don't want that to be like we're trying to recruit teachers. We're not trying to scare people from a profession, right? So how do we get on board, not just to this advisory committee that was very bought in, but also the people that are at the schools with our students? And so Marnie and I actually before that, we worked with professional development or professional learning at our district and the human resources team to discuss which schools we could actually invoke as the very first semester practicum sites. So when we discussed what is our regional approach, which schools would be open to this, which principals would be able to support the substitutes that would be at their schools. And those are the schools that we've identified that will take in our practicum students in the first semester every semester. So what I mean by that is we have a new cohort of students. We have 31 students this fall. The same 6 schools, we have 2 in each region, that were identified to assume these 31 students. In the spring, when we have a new cohort of students, those same 6 schools will receive the new students. And so we'll talk about how we'll bridge that over. But we thought that was critical. Those schools need to know you are the identified 6 schools in Lake County who are going to take on our brand new people. And so we need you to include them in your school community. We need them to know the people in your buildings. We need them to know the teachers and the grade level team and who they go to if they have questions and how do they do their attendance and all of the things. And so they know their role now in this program and in the teacher prep program as the schools that will engage first with our cohort of students. So we went out and met with each principal. We kind of shared what is the vision for this program, why we want them in their schools, how we're trying to help best support them. And I don't think I mentioned this before in the past in the engaging stakeholders, but probably a really important component is this paid practicum. Yeah. So as we mentioned, the students are substituting, so they do get paid for this opportunity. But the really cool conversation that came from engaging with the principals was this need for them to be a part of the community. And many of the principals, I would say all of them actually, said we're going to give them an orientation. So their very first day of substitute teaching on this campus this semester, they weren't substitute teaching, but they had a commitment from Lake County Schools to pay them. So they show up, they have this huge orientation. I think several schools fed them. They kind of are using it as a recruitment opportunity too, which is precisely what we want. We want them to fall in love with our schools and we want them to stay at our schools and teach at our schools. And so there's become a unique competition between these principals about who can lay this red carpet out the best, which is fun. But they even talked about Chick-fil-A, right? There was a Chick-fil-A conversation. So anyway, they gave them orientation, they gave them tours of the school, all the things to orient them. And then one particular, and we're still learning. So I'll put that out there that, this is not a perfect system. It's the first semester that we've really had it in place. There's been days when Marnie and I have been like, ugh. but more good days than scary days. And one of the best models we actually heard from this morning, and I'll share that as we go too, because we think it's important along this journey to keep those stakeholders engaged in the conversation. That's been critical. Yeah. So this morning we talked to the assistant superintendent with our human resources department in Lake County, and he said that one of our schools has a very tiered structure where they actually put them in a grade level assignment. So let's say we have 3 students that are at this one school, one student's 3rd grade assigned, one student's 4th grade assigned, one student's 5th grade assigned. And for the first several substitute days they're being paid for, they were actually with that teacher, the grade level chairperson in the grade, watching the students in the grade, observing the teachers in the grade level. And now when there's a teacher in that grade level that's out, this person, our student, goes into that classroom. And so what a beautiful way for them to make connections with the team. They know the planning structure. They know the students. They're becoming a part of the community, a part of the school community, which is exactly what we wanted. We have another school that has been partnering 2 of our students together. So those 2 students, every Friday, they sub together in a classroom across K through 6 or K through 5, kindergarten through 5th grade, which is also what we wanted. You know, we didn't want them just to be observers. We didn't want them to just be going into classrooms and watching. We wanted them to try some of the coursework that they're learning. So when we talk about what curriculum we're supposed to be teaching and how they can try those things, we wanted them to have the opportunity to do that. So by putting them together in pairs, they're feeling a little bit more supported, a little bit less nervous about, oh my gosh, it's just me. I'm managing the classroom by myself. Now they're feeling like, hey, we can do this together. If there's a challenge that presents itself, or if I'm not sure how I'm going to teach this lesson, or if I don't even think that I'm a great reading teacher, but she's a great reading teacher and I'm a great math teacher, so we can share some of that responsibility. And so we're sharing those best practices and those things that we're learning as we go to really define the structure better as we move forward. But these principals, like I said, these principals will always have the first set of practicum, and then we have 6 new schools. So, and we actually looked at our schools and which ones are a little bit more diverse, so that we can then flip them to a different environment in the spring. So after they've had a year in this practicum with these specific schools, they'll go to, a semester. I said a year. I'm sorry. They'll go in the spring to this new set of schools. And those principals know as well, these students have had a semester. They've been at these schools and they've had these experiences. So now what can we do to further that? Go.
Yeah. One of the other things I loved it, but there's so much to it, but really it's kind of exciting because this is semester 1 and all of the principals, we've had check-in meetings via email. The assistant superintendent of HR has been to the schools or had communication with the principals too, like what's working on the HR side of the house. And then in January, right before the new practicum 3 schools come on, we're going to have a joint principals meeting with HR, professional learning, us, and the principals to kind of talk about where we're going moving forward. And so then that way, I just think that open line of communication is so important. And the principals, every school is so unique, right? So every school in a district is so unique. So every school is doing things just a little bit different, but what a great way to learn from one another, right? And so kind of taking best practices for what's working well will help semester 3, next semester, go even better. So we're excited.
And you're using that reflective learning cycle as a committee too, to make sure that, we're all in this, not just providing a service, but also creating a robust program, everybody feels like they're part of this process. That's great. And, with that idea in mind that you mentioned, a lot of people see subbing as a potential turnoff for future educators. And because at times it is unpredictable and it can be challenging. So that was really nice to hear how the schools are really welcoming them and creating that space for them to be a part of the school communities. That is so essential. What are you doing on the coursework side? This is the next slide. What are you doing on the coursework side to help them prepare for their first day of substitute teaching? What stood out as critical for setting them up for success?
Yeah, so a few things stood out to us. One of them being just really sharing our vision with our students, right? This is our goal. This is what we're doing. And we partnered with Substantial, right? Who already has this really cool system in place and curriculum in place. And so the students all took the Welcome to Substitute Teaching module before their very first day of substituting to kind of give them a heads up on what that looks like. And then we've also had some really critical conversations with our students. So we have 4 intentional class times for practicum that we were able to kind of talk about with our students. And then they're also taking 4 classes. So 4 core classes. They're taking a foundations in reading class, classroom management, EEX, exceptional student education, and a TESOL class. So they're taking that during this semester. And we've been really intentional providing strategies that they can then try out in their substitute experiences, like calls to attention for classroom management and some read aloud strategies for when they're going in and reading books to kids in their classrooms. And so what does that look like? So they're taking their coursework and having opportunities to try it when they're in their substitute experience. We also have students do reflections. So every day that they substitute, they fill out a reflection. That was the first month. So we were able to kind of access those reflections and kind of give suggestions along the way. This happened today. I have some wonderings about that. Can you help me for next week? Absolutely, right? So then we're able to kind of give them that feedback. And then this month we changed it up, and they are going to try out 3 different strategies from classroom management and reading in their substitute experiences. And then they're going to do a video reflection in their course, web course, and kind of open up that sharing time with each other. What went well? What am I going to try? What am I going to keep? Did this call to attention work really good? I'm going to use that every time. Did this not work so good? Does somebody else have a better idea? So we're trying to really create a professional learning community within our own class. So they have had such diverse experiences with kindergarten, 5th grade. One of them subbed in PE the other day. And so it was just a lot of, different experiences that they're able to share with each other, which I think is kind of cool too.
And I'll tell you, I think that's one of the best things about the way that it's being implemented is when a student comes in and says, man, I had a challenging day from the beginning yesterday. I'm not really sure what to do different. We have an on the spot, we have the conversation about it. We talk about strategies. And honestly, I'm thinking about a young lady that was talking to us yesterday about her experience. And we've got to come, you have to come in with a plan. Have you done your substantial module yet? We literally had that conversation. So I think I saw it come through in the chat. I wanted to mention that after the welcome to substitute teaching. And it's actually Marty was like, remember sub school? Remember, because we read the book, we did a book study on it. It was a great book. We can contract with it. Let's get in touch with them. And so we actually have also embedded substantial schools, substitute modules into our course materials. And so I think that would be helpful for you to know if you're considering this, that we have looked at, again, what's the courses that they're taking, classroom management, they're taking ESOL and TESOL strategies. And in the sub-school modules, they have a whole module on classroom management. So our students are also taking that on their own for supporting their substitute work. And we identified that one, and then the exceptional students. So the classroom management for this semester, and then the exceptional students. So it aligns with the coursework that they're taking. And everything is aligning very well. So there's nothing that we're reading that's different from what's being said in class, even from what they're experiencing. So as we talk about some of the behaviors that they're seeing or the challenges that students are providing for them, it's all aligning with what the resources are telling them. The other thing, and I'm going to come piggyback to you, but the other thing that we found that it's really helpful. So I think it'd be helpful for you guys to understand, we have of the 31 students, about half of them are subbing. The other half are current employees. So we have that pipeline from paraprofessional to the classroom as well. And they're all kind of merged together. So Marnie mentioned such a diverse experience that these students are having, whether they're subbing, where they're subbing, and then if they're an actual employee as well. So in an effort for us to align what they're seeing, so that we can be sure that they're not making incorrect conceptions. I think it's the same exact thing that's happening in the classroom. I don't want a student to come up with an idea and then run with it being something that may be inaccurate or a misconception that they have. So we designed professional learning days in conjunction with our Lake County Schools and Sumter County Schools partners. And we literally got permission. Again, this is a key point. I think it's going to be a game changer for us, is that they chose to pay the students for this day of learning. And we all converged on one school. So it was a K-8 school site, again, focused on the coursework. So we focused on classroom management and found the very basics of literacy, kindergarten through 2nd grade classrooms. And I know Marty worked with a literacy coach at the school, so I'll let her speak about the design of that and the point of that day. So
we called it a professional learning day. We had all of our students come to one school, and the literacy coach we had an hour. We had actually from 9 to 12, we did professional learning. Then we did classroom walkthroughs. We had 16 classrooms that they were able to go and observe with K2 students. Each of our groups saw 4 different classrooms, 1 in each grade level. And then they were able to take notes on what they observed in early literacy and classroom management. Then we came back together and debriefed that experience. So they were, again, creating shared language and common language together, and shared experiences help then, once we do it together, then they can go out and practice it. That's the idea. So it's not only there's clinical practices that happen, but we're designing the clinical practice so that we can participate too and help in the moment explain what's happening. The best part about it, I think, was that we collaborated with the school. The administrators were there. The district professional learning people were there. And that is so critical and just something we don't see often. And so we've really been trying hard to intentionally design something that we can provide that best practice for our students. So we're excited. We're going to do the next one in a few weeks, and with a specific focus for exceptional student education look force, because that's another strategy, another class that they're taking too.
Yeah. So it was a great day. A great day of learning. I know I saw Aaron shared the link. So there's a link to the article that was written about it, and just probably provides a little bit more information as well, but it was a great day.
Yeah. I love those. You know how much I love those instructional rounds, but just what a wonderful way for everybody to be building, a collaborative language and a collaborative understanding of what is going on in classrooms, and, the role of the teacher, the role of the students, how they're all informing those learning environments. So I think that is just fabulous that your students are a part of that process, and that the schools are taking part in that and coming together, from all of these different perspectives to take a day to really go deep into what we want learning to look like.
And I'm glad you mentioned common language. I wanted to jump on that because we mentioned that before, and that was it was so nice, because when you speak about like a token economy or a phonics instruction lesson, and then they're trying to attach it to reading, it's very abstract, but to see it and then we say it, and now they've attached that learning and that language, and they're able to speak about it even more. Like it's just been a really great way to open up the learning.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So for my last question is about creating schedules. So what considerations did you take into account when you designed the practicum and the course schedules? This is so much that they are juggling all at once. How did you build that into your program?
Mm-hmm. So I can tell you, we started by asking the district. I think we mentioned that at the very beginning before courses started, like, if we're going to put them in substitute teaching positions, what courses of the list of courses that we have to offer do you think would be appropriate to align with our first practicum experience? And that's where we said, okay, they definitely need classroom management and instructional strategies. That has got to be a class that they're taking alongside their first substitute experience. And then when we talked about like the TSL, the ESOL strategies, English speakers of other languages, and our ESE students, because again, they're going to have those students embedded in their classrooms in general education. And so what are the best practices and strategies for those? So that's where 3 of those courses came about. And then the reading one, we have a progression of reading courses. So it seemed to fit that we'll start them now, and then we'll just continue that progression as they move through the program. We asked the district, they said Monday, Friday. Like that was reiterated multiple times. So then we thought, well, we'll just design our coursework for Tuesdays and Thursdays and try to leave them a day that would be open for them as well. So our students only take classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they take those 4 courses. So they take 2 on Tuesday and they take 2 on Thursday. They sub in the schools, and we gave them a choice. So we didn't say you have to sub both days. We said you can either substitute on Monday or Friday, or you can do Monday and Friday. And we even gave them a volunteer choice because we realized some of them might have a job, but you had to volunteer for a day. So if you're going to volunteer for the day, you might as well get paid for the volunteer day that you're doing, particularly in Practicum 1 when they are getting so much support. So they are having orientations and they are having, this is welcome to the school. How do we support them? So forth. The other thing I failed to mention, which I thought was important, is because the schools are picked, those 6 schools, if there is a day where they don't have a substitute vacancy, the student is still guaranteed pay. So it's like having a assigned substitute every Monday and every Friday. And they are able to do a myriad of things with the student, so long as it fits in the teacher preparation portal, which I mean, anything they're going to experience it. So we have them working with small groups of students or pushing into support classrooms or observing different types of meetings, whether it's an RTI meeting or a behavior intervention meeting, or there's so much for them to do. So I say that because, I felt like if they went on Monday and there wasn't a substitute experience, then what? So they're still paid, they're still utilized at the school in that manner. So many of the schools are taking advantage of that as well. And then Wednesday is open, but we actually have several students that are taking advantage of they're required the one day, but we have lots that are doing 2 and 3 days of substitute teaching now because of the schedule as well. We have 2 cohorts because of the size of the students. And so we have an evening cohort, and the ones that are in the evening can sub 5 days a week. And we probably have 4 students that are literally subbing 5 days a week. So then I will tell you that we share the calendar in the very beginning. So here is when Lake Sumter State College's semester starts. Here's when it ends. Here's our shared holidays. We discussed teacher work days, and they did decide to include a paid day for our students on that teacher work day. Again, thinking about if they're going to sit in with planning, if they're a part of the 3rd grade team, they should be with the 3rd grade team on that teacher work day. So they have really been, I can't speak highly enough to the district partnership that we have, that they have really embraced this as an opportunity to grow teachers that are going to come work in the district, which only benefits us and our students. And so they have chosen to pay them for teacher work days. They've given them the paid professional learning days that we spoke about. We've already had the one, but they've continued to pursue that, but we plan that calendar together. We actually just met this morning to talk about the spring calendar so that we can get those dates down for the professional learning, when the students are going to start, when orientation is happening, how they will be fingerprinted. So again, that's huge to keep coming back around to that stakeholders and keeping them engaged in the progression, but that obviously plays a part in this scheduling as well. So, and then in the next semester, they're going to do another practicum, like I mentioned before, and they'll take the next ESOL course, the next reading course, and now we'll introduce a math and a language arts course. In the fall of 2025, so if we're just staying with this first cohort, they actually don't have a practicum anymore. They will have embedded experiences within our methods courses, but we kept the same schedule. So we have Monday, Wednesday, Friday open for students, and our hope and the school's hope is that they will continue to substitute through that. And then in the spring of 2026, it'll be their full-time paid internship. So they will be in the schools full-time in that spring and then graduate. So we feel like we have like a I do, we do, you do approach to the practicum. We're all going to do it, model it together in practicum 1 and practicum 2, where they actually have that practicum. They're going to be in more embedded, more diverse settings, more opportunities to sub, and then they have their opportunity to do it on their own before their final internship. So anything else about this that I missed?
No, I think it really is that scaffolded approach, and the schedule staying Tuesday, Thursday allows them the flexibility and the freedom to continue that substituting experience and get paid while they're going to school, which is amazing. Yeah. So, and different.
That's the wow factor we get whenever they're like, they get paid. They're like, what? We didn't get paid early on. We didn't get paid.
Well, and I just commend you for putting that theory into practice. That theory that's saying that students really need this meaningful clinical work, and for making that such a center part of your program, and you'll have everything else kind of revolved and such a robust support system built up around that for these students, so that this can be a really positive experience for them, and one that, hopefully will help them to be so prepared and so ready for the classroom in that 3rd and year and beyond. So that's really, really impressive. So thank you. Are there anything else that we should know about this program in your design?
I just think that it's ever evolving. I think that that's important, right? Like, we have an idea, and there's logistics that go along with every single thing, and being open to have those conversations with our students, hearing our students too, and listening to what they need has already had us adapting a couple of things, right? And I think that's really important. The fact that we're teaching the practicum class together, we're co-teaching it and listening to students, and then talking with the principals, talking with the district, and continually trying to make that model. I think it also shows students that it's okay to be flexible, right? Like, and we're not stuck in it, but they're not stuck in it either, right? And so let's talk through it and grow and learn together. I think that we're trying really hard to model that for students, that teaching is a flexible career. You got to be flexible when you go in, and it's okay to pivot and change if we need to, if it benefits students. Big big students and the tiny humans they work with. So I think that that's important. Yeah.
And I also say, I feel like at the state college level, that we are more easily accessible to our workforce. So as Sumter County speaks to us about their needs and Lake County comes and says, we're seeing this, we are able to be a little bit more flexible and adapt to their needs. They're local. We're not a giant institution. I think there's a lot more red tape that happens in those instances. And not that, I mean, we have MOUs in place and policies in place, but we are able to be a little bit more flexible in how we're meeting their needs, and a little bit more adaptive. And I think that because it's a community, because we're supporting the community that we work in, we have a better understanding of what the needs are. We're in the schools. It keeps our recency of experience very, very recent. So we get to be in there with students. We get to talk to them and we get to hear from them. And then we get to hear from the district. So I think that's important too, to hear us say is that the districts also get input into this program. We have to be good listeners and we have to be good partners with that. And so when we're hearing, whether it's a principal that calls that says, hey, I'm seeing a bit of a pattern in this student, like how can we help support that student? I think that we all recognize that our students right now are going to be their teachers in the next year or so. Yeah. And so the better that we can prepare them together to be successful in the classroom is just going to be what makes it set apart. So we're really hopeful. It's an experiment. And by design, but
those lines of communication are so important, that they can go both ways, that everybody can problem solve together and not feel like, there are boundaries between that we're all figuring this out, and that you have such a clear, shared goal in all of this too, is really helpful. So
yeah, for
wonderful.
Sure.
And I just want to let everybody know who's watching. We've put some resources into the chat that hopefully you'll be able to access. We have a link to Subschool, what Marnie and Stephanie were talking about, what they use kind of as their curriculum or their textbook for the practicum. We have an article on the on kind of the process that they were talking about, the shared observation and discussion process they were talking about, as well as the redesigning the substitute teaching experience book from Substantial Classrooms. At this time, we'd love to know if you have any questions. We can, I'm sure we have the answers for them, or get you close to it. What were you excited to hear about today? What connections are you making to your work? And you can put those in the chat.
And while people are thinking about those reflections, just want to say thank you so much for sharing about your program. I will say, in thinking about best practices and sort of our learning about substitute teaching and about sort of where education prep programs are right now, it's really exciting to see so many best practices in action in your work. So thank you, Marnie and Stephanie, for sharing. I can't wait for more people to help learn alongside you and be inspired by what you are doing in Lake Sumter. So thank you so much. And I know we just have a couple more minutes, so feel free to put things in chat. But otherwise, we just want to also invite everybody to really think about connections to your own work and in your own context.
Mm-hmm. We just want to say thank you. And again, we have a resource here on college subs, kind of more in depth with a lot of the best practices that Stephanie and Marnie were talking about putting into practice. They are such a wonderful example of what this looks like on the ground and running. You're also welcome to get in touch with either of us, and we're happy to share more information. And we'd love to hear your stories as well, if you have programming like this that is happening. So thank you everybody for being here and for all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We look forward to crossing paths with you. Again, if you have any questions or comments or anything pops up, or you would like any additional information, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will definitely put you in contact with either Amanda, Erin, Dr. Stephanie, or Marnie. We will look forward to hearing from all of you. And thank you for joining us this afternoon. And thank you, ladies, for sharing this wonderful information. And we are happy to continue your work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.